life is full of adventures.
Do you take this man to be your husband?
I do. Welcome home.
We did it. He has your eyes.
He's perfect.
Make the most of them all with PenFed checking and savings accounts. Learn more at PenFed.org. Federally insured by NCUA. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed Credit Union.
PenFed's got great rates for everyone.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Streamed and Screened, an entertainment podcast about movies and TV from Lee Enterprises. I'm Terry Lipschutz, managing editor of the National Newsroom at Lee and co-host of the program with Bruce Miller, editor of the Sioux City Journal and a longtime entertainment reporter. Bruce, are you staying dry in Sioux City? Oh,
we are in Floodville. They're all around us. So if you are dry somewhere and it's hot and you're complaining about the heat, just know we would like some of that heat to be able to suck up some of the water. There are floods all around us. My gang is all out there covering everything. It's a mess.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, I'm in Wisconsin, and it's not quite to the extreme you have, but it has been raining nonstop here. It feels like for 3 months, and yeah, the river is above flood stage. It hasn't caused quite the issues that you have by you, but there's a lot of places dealing with water. I mean, even just the smaller issues of life, like having to deal with like rescheduling softball games and stuff because we just like the field's underwater or something like that. It's crazy. So, but the happier things, and as long as we have things to watch, things to keep us entertained and take the stress out, I guess every once in a while, there's options. There's movies. The Bear is back. A lot of good things.
Can I talk about The Bear? Because The Bear started this week.
Yes.
They're dropping all 10 episodes. They're going to do them earlier than they announced. So if you happen to turn on your FX on Hulu on Wednesday night, you'll see it in advance. But it's 10 episodes. And I did get to see them before we got to today, and I binged all weekend long. And it's like, okay, so you remember when we last left off, they were opening this new restaurant. Right. Well, now the restaurant is open. And there are issues. The chef, Carmi, makes a list of non-negotiable, things that aren't up for grabs that you have to adhere to. And that doesn't sit well with the rest of the staff because, well, come on. Some of these things are, and I wish I could give you them, but I don't want to spoil it for you, but non-negotiables. Well, that's Carmi. He's very kind of determined that it's going to be on his terms. And if you just an average person watching, you'd go, well, that doesn't make sense. You're not going to be able to pull that one off. But so then there's this kind of back and forth. And I will tell you that if you were looking to see somebody come back this year, you probably will, because they do a lot of flashback episodes where you get to see how they got to the restaurant, what happened before the restaurant, what the beef was all about. So there are a lot of kind of fill in the blanks to help you understand what's going on. And guest stars. There are big guest stars, and I wish I could tell you. I admit it, I'd tell you, because this would brighten your day if you knew somebody who is going to be on there and does a great job. So that's The Bear, and it's starting this week. You'll get all 10 episodes at once. You could watch them all at once, or you could kind of spill them out as you need them.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to spill them out because I love the show, but it's so intense it gets stressful for me, and it's like I feel like I can watch one episode and then I need to change things up a little bit, and then the next day I'll come back and watch the next.
You can't have all that arguing.
It's a lot of screaming.
Oh, and it's still going on. Still going on. But yeah, so this is what screws people up now. We're coming to the Emmy time. Right. And nominations will not be for any of these episodes. It'll be for the second season.
Right.
You see a lot of nominations for The Bear. It's because of the second season, not the new ones that are coming up.
Yeah. And I know we even ran into this, and I don't even remember which award show, because we had the Emmys the last time, but it was for season 1. But then there was a different award show that came out roughly around, maybe it was the Golden Globes, but that was actually season 2. So it's Like, yeah, you gotta. It depends on whenever their award window is to catch it at the right time.
This would be my non-negotiable is put this in a regular season so we know where you are. And one of the stars gets to direct, so you'll see that. It's a great standalone kind of episode. I was all in. I watched 5 on one night and 5 on another night. I was all ready for it.
You're already you can deal, but you're a professional. I mean, this is what you do, so
Yeah.
you can deal with the stress. And yes,
Chef, yes, chef, yes, chef. Hands. We need hands. These are all the things I learned. So
yeah,
there we are. But yeah, The Bear, watch it. I think it
Yeah.
still holds up in season 3.
nice. All right, well, I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, they all drop June 27th premieres, but it's just everything all at once, and then watch you crush them, go through them the whole weekend, or take your time and knock through them as you have time in the summer.
And you find out about the restaurant's name. You find out about a lot of different things. So, and just a spoiler, this is a spoiler. Show you a little more of Chicago than you have seen in the past.
That's not a real spoiler, but that's good. I think that's good.
Because I think it's trying to make them seem like working people,
Yeah.
just people in Chicago, instead of this kind of high-toned restaurant, because you even get to see the newspaper, and the newspaper plays a part in it, so I'm not going to say anything more. This is another week where we're seeing a lot of independent films pop. Another one that you must see is Thelma with June Squibb. She plays an elderly woman who's living alone, and her kids, of course, are all worried about where she is, what happens. She gets scammed by one of those phone calls. And I've had these phone calls where they say, you've got your grandson is hurt. He needs $10,000. You need to put $10,000 in the mail right now. She does it. And then she feels bad about being scammed. So she decides to go and find the people who scammed her.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's so cute, so cute. You'd have Parker Posey's in it. A lot of people that you'll recognize in smaller roles, and that's one that's coming this week.
And I'm looking at the cast. Is this correct that Richard Roundtree is in it too? Shaft?
Oh, he plays her really best friend, and he helps her go on the road
Wow,
seeking this.
that's
Yeah,
fun.
they go on a
Nice.
scooter, one of those
Yeah.
kind of, older people scooters.
Yeah,
Oh, it's so sweet. And 90
Yeah.
minutes, you're in, you're out, you're
in
good.
and out. Nice. Okay.
And then there's a sacrifice.
Okay.
Sacrifice is about cults, and it's scarier than hell. And this is one that I watched late at night, and I wish I hadn't, because I thought the cults were at the door. They were knocking. And the next day I got somebody knocking at the door, and I thought, oh my God, it's the cult. The cult is here. It was a bunch of little kids that were trying to sell me like cookies. I hope it wasn't a cult, but I said no to them. So I hope that was all right, because having seen Thelma, I don't want to be an old person who's scammed. And I also don't want to have the cult come and get me at the window. But this is based on the book Tokyo.
Okay.
It was set in Tokyo. And then the pandemic happened, and they had to switch it because they couldn't shoot any things in Tokyo. Much higher cautionary efforts were put on there. So she switched it to Berlin. And she said it actually gave it a little more, because there's that whole history with Berlin, and, do people become part of a cult when they're enamored with a leader? And Eric Bana plays he's a visiting professor who comes over and brings his daughter with him to Berlin. And then the daughter starts meeting kids, and of course, she gets introduced to the cult. So if you happen to have daughters and you're on a trip to Berlin,
Yeah.
don't let them go out on their own.
Bad things happen. Is there a hostel in this at all, or is there no hostels?
You know what? Here's the strange thing about that movie is that it looks like they're going to a spa.
Oh,
Everything
really?
is like, and they're talking about climate control and
Oh,
those kinds of things, the crisis that might happen. And you think, well, she's an activist kind of kid. She'd probably be interested in this stuff. And they do kind of things that look like it's at a health spa. And then it gets creepier and creepier. And then Dad realizes he's kind of been a deadbeat dad by not paying attention to all the things she's doing,
Oh,
kind of run in and rush and help.
yeah.
But fascinating. Again, another one. Don't watch it late at night.
Yeah, a little creepy. So, all right. Anything else on
And
the?
then I've got one more for you. These are all.
Well, I'm like just trying to tee you up slowly because I know this last one. It's a big one.
It's a wonderful one, and it's so fascinating because I have been waiting to find out really the past of Lily Gladstone. We saw her just pop in Killers of the Flower Moon.
Right.
And you think, well, but what did she do before this? Well, while she was making that movie, she was also working on another one called Fancy Dance. It was directed by her good friend, Erica Tremblay. And Erica had worked with her on a short film. Erica has done documentaries, basically, and wanted to get into nonfiction films, or fiction films, rather, so that she could start making narrative films, large-scale ones. Erica had been working on Reservation Dogs. If you happen to watch that series, she directed a few of the episodes. She wrote some of the episodes. And the producer-creator of that show, Sterling Harjo, said, I think we're going to end this after 3 years. And so she thought, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go with all of this? So she called her good friend, Lily Gladstone, and said, Lily, I've got a part that might be kind of good for you. Are you interested? And, not knowing what her fortunes would be with Killers of the Flower Moon, she said yes. In fact, when I talked to her, if we run the interview here, she's on her way to the airport to go film another movie. She's got so many her IMDb account. You'll go, well, how's she getting all these done?
Yeah.
Because it's like they're stacking up, but she realizes that you've got to strike while you can.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, somebody's going to be,
right.
Taking your place.
Yeah. Now this is, and just to clarify too, because this is coming out kind of like now, but this actually came out initially early last year.
Film festival. It came out in 2023 in winter. But they were filmed like kind of simultaneously, but she was and you'll hear this, she was so thrilled that it came out before Killers of the Flower Moon, so the people knew that she still had some indie film credits.
Yeah. Because that's almost the problem now. Is it's because she's been popping out because she was in that Hulu program too,
right?
Recently under the bridge, right? So it almost feels like, well, yeah, she did Killers of Flower Moon. Now she's doing Fancy Dance and she's doing Under the Bridge. But all these things were filmed. I mean, these have all been in production for a while. So you spoke to Lily
and also talked to Erica. And and it's interesting to hear what they have to say about this. I hope you can hear all these because they've got an interesting thing to talk about with independent films and also with Native Americans coming to the forefront now because of Killers of the Flower Moon.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go first to Lily Gladstone.
Well, what has this last year been like? Is it just a constant blur of movies and TV shows and everything, or what?
After the acting, it's just powerful when you learn to be fully present in the moment. It's just definitely been a long string of moments.
Does it say to you, that there are changes in the industry, that you are seeing more, or is it just because it's your time?
I think it's both. There's it's a my time and our time thing. This has been a rising tide lifting all ships for a while. The fact that it's risen to the level where you have filmmakers like Martin Scorsese telling these stories and telling them from a different angle than you're used to seeing in Hollywood up to this point. I think that's indicative of, like the kind of work that Sterling Harjo has been doing for generations and making really solid films that people are connected to and seeing dynamic, stellar Indigenous talent do difficult, wonderful roles. It feels like I'm part of something that's growing together and that's like way bigger than any one person could be. Just happened to be hitched to a particularly culture-shifting, prolific, legendary filmmaker in all of it.
Had you done Fancy Dance before all of the kind of the hoopla came out about Flowers of the Killer Moon, or?
Yeah, we shot Fancy Dance exactly a year after I was wrapping Killers of the Flower Moon, very close to the same place. So I was back in Tulsa a year later. telling a story that felt, well, very different characters. You know, I was playing a woman in one, I was playing a woman grieving her murdered sisters. In another, I was playing a woman grieving her missing sister, who she finds is murdered. These two films have kind of been in a heartbeat with each other for a long time. I read Erica's script about 2 months before taking my first meeting with Scorsese. She started writing it not long before I started auditioning for the first time for the Scorsese piece. So the two, it's like one takes a step forward and then takes a beat, and then the other takes a step forward. So they have been in this weird sort of balanced lockstep for a long time. Making Fancy Dance happened while Killers of the Flower Moon was being edited. So Isabel's remarked several times, who plays Roki in the film, how cool it's been for her to watch the trajectory go from like Lily that she knows to like Lily that everybody suddenly knows.
Did you have an idea that this was going to all pop like this or not?
I mean, I knew, because I knew each story. I knew the two belonged together. I'd hoped, and I was actually really, really thankful that Fancy Dance had a chance to premiere first, because I was joking with Marty and Leo the whole time we were making it that, you know, I wasn't letting them take my indie cred yet. Like I was holding on to it for every last second. So Fancy Dance premiered January of 23. Killers reached audiences October of 23. There was a part of me that was really happy, maybe for selfish reasons, that was out there, because this character of Jax and this story told by Indigenous filmmakers saw audiences first. But then there was another part of me that thought maybe it would have been a lot more helpful to the trajectory of Fancy Dance if Killers had preceded it. So that actually is how, you know, from the inside, that was the way it rolled out. Fancy Dance first and then Killers, but now audiences, that is kind of in a way what happened. And then Killers of the Flower Moon showed audiences what they didn't know that they were missing. When people watched Killers of the Flower Moon, a lot of the feedback I got and was hearing specifically was people wanting to see more of Molly and her sisters, wanting more of the Osage narrative. And a lot of people who were lucky enough, you know, the festival going crowd who got to see Fancy Dance before Killers premiered, or the ones who sought it out at festivals after Killers premiered, everybody said the same thing. These two films speak to each other. They exist in the same world 100 years apart. They feel like these narratives belong together.
Do you feel, though, that there's a responsibility on your part to make more films like this? Or is it just, you know, where does that all lie? Can you just be an actress, or do you have to be more than that?
As an actress, I'm drawn to a good story. And I've always felt, even before my film career started popping off, as they say, my art has gone to serve a social purpose. I think, you know, there's a quote that struck me, and I wish I could remember who said it. I know somebody who's going to hear it is going to recognize immediately who it comes from. But art's not a mirror you hold up to reality. I mean, sure, it can be, absolutely. But it's more a hammer with which to shape it. There's a definite responsibility, because being a storyteller, you have the power of animism. You're breathing life into something. So while I don't think every narrative that an actor has to do, particularly an actor from a marginalized, underrepresented community, being on screen is enough. You know, having that level of representation at every level of production, every kind of story, it's I mean, I just remember how exciting it was when like Rogue One came out and Diego Luna was the lead character, and you're hearing a Spanish-speaking man leading this major franchise, and the way that represented such a vast number of people engaging with Star Wars. It's that's revolutionary. There is a responsibility when you're telling stories like this to have artists who have the lived experience to bring you into that perspective, to really flesh it out in a very compassionate and humanizing way. It's not our only responsibility. Yeah, there are pieces that I seek and that I take that are purely fun. And I think in doing so, that just by itself is a revolutionary act. You know, little native girl who wants to be an actor knows that she can take a rom-com. She doesn't have to play somebody who's, you know, grieving or overcoming trauma or whatever. It can just be a joyful girl falling in love.
When I was growing up, Tantu Cardinal was the bomb. She was the American actress who got...
Oh, she still is.
But you know what was funny is when I did get to talk to her, she said, I didn't work. I didn't always have work.
Mhm.
Has that changed? I mean, can a Native American actress say, yes, this is my career, other than you?
I think it's still a process of waiting for long periods of time for roles to be there, or waiting for periods of time where a director will see what you have to offer as a performer. So I want all of us to be working often and actively. And I know that there's still long lulls in between work for most of us. I know that's certainly the case before Killers of the Flower Moon. It's certainly been the case since Killers of the Flower Moon in some ways. This has been a particularly busy year. You reach a point in your career where you just develop a filmmaking family and you realize that if you're going to have work, you're going to have to kind of create it and advocate for it for yourself. And Fancy Dance was the only project on my horizon before Marty called. And I knew that one was going to take a couple of years to find funding.
Do you dance? Have you danced at powwows or not?
You know, my mom, when she was very close to giving birth to me, went to Browning Indian days. And while I was still in her tummy, I started kicking along with that heartbeat drum when Grand Entry started. I danced. So I feel like I was dancing before my feet ever touched the ground. I did women's traditional for a couple of summers when I was a kid. I actually, ironically, studied ballet.
Wow.
And since becoming an actor, there have been a couple of roles that have required that I fancy dance. So that's become a way that my body's found it really loves to move. My spirit really loves to move as well.
All right, Bruce, thanks for the interview with Lily. And now we're going to go to the director of the film, Erica Tremblay.
And the writer.
And the writer.
She wrote it and directed it. And I think that gives you a little more buy-in.
Yeah.
Because you're working with your own words and you could easily change them as you need to.
Absolutely. All right.
Erica, tell me the difference between doing a documentary and doing a fiction film. Is there a lot? Is there a difference?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was basically making documentary films out of like desperation to tell stories. I'm so grateful to that type of storytelling, but all the while I was doing it, I just wanted to make things up. And I was like, oh, it would be so much more interesting if this would happen. So, I mean, I've always wanted to be a narrative filmmaker. I always wanted to write and direct. And so I feel like my documentary filmmaking background just reinvigorated my passion to being able to write for characters versus sitting and watching a character.
How long was this script kind of hanging around? How long has it been since you started it?
You know, honestly, in Hollywood time, we miraculously got this film made very quickly. We started the screenplay and wrote the screenplay most of 2020, and we were shooting in 2022. So, I mean, and that's a quick turnaround in Hollywood. So we're very grateful that we were able to get financiers on board that believed in the story.
What did you know, though, about Lily that you said, oh, my God, she's going to pop like crazy in 2023, 24?
You know, I had done a short film with Lily called Little Chief that we shot in my community. And that premiered in 2020. And at the success of that film, I said, do you want to do a feature together? You know, I wasn't thinking of Lily popping. It's just like I just knew from watching all of Lily's films and having worked with her on Little Chief just how talented and wonderfully beautiful a human being they are. And so I was grateful that Lily said yes, and you know, fingers crossed we get to do more things together in the future. But what a wildly talented, gifted, generous, curious person Lily is.
You were part of one of my favorite series of all times, Reservation Dogs. Why did that end, number one? And number two, what was it about that roofing episode that you directed that was just so incredible?
I am also so grateful for my time on Res Dogs. I got to work on my favorite television show of all time. In the third season, Sterling, my mentor, my friend, my showrunner, said that he wanted to move on to other things and that the story that we set out to tell had been told. I think FX would have continued to make many seasons of that show, but I'm really grateful for my time there. And I'm also so supportive that we were able to end the story where we wanted to and on our terms. I was so grateful to direct the episode of Roofing. It's an episode about young men and masculinity, and Sterling said, wipe your female gaze all over it. And I I loved being on that roof with those men telling that very poignant and sensitive version of Native masculinity. And I'm glad that working on Res Dogs brought me back to Oklahoma, introduced me to this beautiful crew that we used on Fancy Dance. So what a wonderful crossover.
Will we see a lot more Native American stories being told? Do you see that it has opened up a little more?
I really hope so. You know, this past year of seeing Lily on all these red carpets for Killers of the Flower Moon, seeing the success of Reservation Dogs, Billy Luther's film, you know, popping off at all the festivals, Rutherford Falls. I have so many incredible colleagues, mentors, and friends that are working on things. And, you know, I hope that Hollywood walks the walk, you know. I hope that they keep the promises that they say out loud about inclusion and about diverse storytelling. I think we've proven as of late that there's a huge appetite for these stories and that people will show up and watch and pay to buy tickets and streaming subscriptions for these films. So I'm optimistic, if a little guarded.
Well, thank you so much, and great good luck with Fancy Dance. It's really wonderful. Do you dance?
Well, I danced at the strip club, so I was able to really bring some authenticity there. And I've attended many a powwow.
All right, Bruce, thanks for those 2 interviews. Really good to not only hear from the star of the show, but also the writer and director. Good perspective.
And it's an interesting film because, we've seen so many that are about Native Americans that are, you wonder, what is the point of this? I think it talks a lot about missing and murdered indigenous women, which is a big thing in the news, but it also talks about local government. You know, is it right to have foster parents who are not Native for a child who is? And it brings these subjects up, but it doesn't necessarily give you answers or hammer you with a solution. And it's fun to watch. She is, you know what? I think Lily fills a niche that's been missing. She's this kind of tough woman on the surface, and you can just see in her face where she's kind of, her heart is just bleeding for some kind of person, some issue, whatever it is. So it's fascinating to see, and I think she can fill this niche better than anyone. We saw it in Under the Bridge, and I think that was a good introduction to the world that she could be in the future.
Even though these are different programs and different themes, or different time frames and different styles and whatnot, there are some intertwining themes here, with looking at some of the issues that Native Americans are dealing with, or indigenous people in general. And it's interesting to see these stories come to light through different types of programming, movies, TV shows.
That's the benefit of independent films. They may not get a lot of money to make these films, but they're bringing stories out that we haven't heard, and we don't need another whatever story. Yeah. But this is something I would love to see, and I'd like to see more of. And as Lily says, wouldn't it be great to see me in a rom-com? That'd be fun.
It would be. There's so many options she now has on the table. You get an Oscar nomination, and the doors fly open. But again, just to clarify, these projects were already in the works. So it's like, this is the stuff that she had just earned on her own anyway, because she's good. So now, the sky's the limit. We'll see what happens, because now she's getting stuff. Yeah. Now
I think the Oscar will come, and could be nominated for an Emmy this next week when the Emmy nominations come out, because Under the Bridge was pretty strong.
It was pretty good. Yeah. It had its moments. There was a few, it wasn't perfect, but I liked it a lot. It kept me coming back.
And I think, the Emmy people like that. They like to kind of tag team. If the Oscars nominated somebody, another one who's going to have that is Robert Downey Jr. He'll be nominated this year as well. So I just have a feeling that she could get an Emmy nomination.
Anything else on the horizon?
We're hitting in the big movie times. I did see the Bike Riders movie. Okay. Interesting. And the only reason I say it's interesting is because Jodie Comer is so unbelievably good. You cannot believe that where she's from at all. She's really good. at helping you believe that she is this woman in the 60s and 70s, is kind of bike rider adjacent. And she tells the story. Mike Feist from West Side Story and Challengers is in there as a photographer who's hearing her story about the bike riders. And then the gang has Austin Butler and you name it, John, there's a lot there, but it is an interesting film. And I think it might be one of the ones that'll hold up from the summer.
Something to check out for sure. We have a lot of options, and people, and just, in case you missed it, we finally have a bit of a blockbuster this summer in Inside Out too. So people, they are going back to the theaters for some. You just have to get them with the right project.
You got to have the right stuff.
Yeah.
That's about it. And that's how we should be.
Yeah.
I see everything, but maybe I should be a little more discerning and not watch everything.
That's right. All right. Well, on that note, we will be back again next week. And thanks again for listening to this episode of Streamed and Screened.
Life is full of adventures.
Do you take this man to be your husband?
I do. Welcome home.
We did it. He has your eyes.
He's perfect.
Make the most of them all with PenFed checking and savings accounts. Learn more at PenFed.org. Federally insured by NCUA. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed Credit Union.
PenFed's got great rates for everyone.
For the ones who know safety isn't a catchphrase, it's a culture. And the ones who help make sure everyone makes it home safe. For the safety-minded who watch everyone's backs, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as safety assessments and training to keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.